Good morning. Today I thought I'd tell you a little bit about line and how important line is in composition in painting, and it involves a cardboard cereal box, not necessarily malted Wheaties, but that's what I had in my cupboard, so I'm going to put that to one side for the moment. Let me just briefly explain about composition. Tarantino comes in here. Right, let's say you're doing a landscape. So here we are, we've got a foreground, some sea, some hills, and maybe some features in the sky like clouds or a sun. Everything's very horizontal, and you've got to find some way of connecting those features. Well, one way obviously is a boat. As soon as you put a boat in, can you see you've immediately connected the sea with the hills and with the sky? Or if you wanted to put it over that, you could connect the sea and the hills and the sky and the sun. So a boat's quite a good one. And let me just briefly show you that, because boats can be quite tricky. And this is, if I try to paint, say, this mast, and I try to paint it like that, can you see it's quite difficult, and I've got a very wobbly line. So what you do is you wang your paper over like that, load your brush. Right, I'd get a ruler, and you hold your ruler not flat, not upright, sort of somewhere in the middle. And what you're going to do is you're going to run the ferrule, the metal bit of the brush, along the side of the ruler. So, and it's much easier to do it horizontal. It's almost impossible to do it that way. So let's take that horizontal, and I'm just going to go right down. Oops, is she not particularly good one, is it? There we are, just do it again. And you can see I get a very straight line. So you can practice it a few times, but you get really quite good lines that way. Much better than trying to do a juddery line. Right, so you can use a brush, that's one way, but it gives you a bit of a boring line. Another feature you could, which I suppose is quite obvious, is you can put a tree in. And I'm going to do trees at a later video, but just shows you the idea. That tree is connecting the foreground with the loch and the hills and the clouds. It doesn't have to be a tree which necessarily grows out from the ground. You can see I use tree because it's got lots of line to coming from the top right hand corner, and it just started to combine elements of the picture, in this case the sun with the castle and the sky. If you get down really low and do a mouse eyes view, what you then get are these lovely grasses, and again look, all this lovely line, and that's going to connect the foreground with the hills there with the stone dikes and the trees. Doesn't necessarily have to be natural form, it can be man-made, of course. This is Loch Ness, and here this old wooden pier is doing exactly the same. It's connecting all these layers, plus the reflection. So you've got the foreground and reflection and the pier all connecting the layers. These are quite good ones as well, if you can find salmon nets. Again, you've got all these lovely strong perpendicular lines. Right, now you don't always have to use a brush. This here was painted with cardboard. I just bent cardboard round, so let me just show you that. Cardboard makes really interesting kind of just a more interesting line, really. You can either do it that way, which is you just paint the paint on and you can stamp it, or you can dippy-inny, do some dippy-inny, hang on, and you just get things like that. Now that is fantastic for things like fencing. Can you see it's a much more interesting line actually than the this painted line. It slightly breaks up, and it just gives a more dynamic sort of line. Because cardboard is flexible, you can obviously bend it, and if I show you, where's that one, that's how I painted these lines here. I bent the cardboard into all sorts of shapes and stamped it, and stamped myself a line. Now, as well as cardboard, which I prefer, to be honest, because it's flexible, and I've found that cereal boxes make ideal, and they've got just the right amount of absorbency. You can use your credit card though. I've cut this one in half because it's more manageable, and again I can either dip it in or I can do a line. So again, you could do that. Now you see how good that is for your boat mast. I had a little bit more control than I did painting there. So a credit card's quite good. What it also can do is it can give you some interesting grasses, because you can flip it like that. Grass looks really boring if you do that. You see that so many times in a painting where you just do that and it's terrible. So, but with a credit card, you've got, you can just lay it on and just flick it, and the more you flick it, you can get really big, interesting kind of glasses, and you can get quite interesting textures as well. As you can see for the tartan there, I just painted lines with my credit card and I flicked down to give me this kind of material type texture. So it just really involves you going into your kitchen, getting yourself your cereal pack, getting a credit card, and playing. And that's it. Thank you.